All right, I just got back from the sentencing of FTX's former director of engineering, Nishad Singh, who avoided prison time in one of the more interesting sentencings I've ever seen, and now the only former FTX exec to avoid jail time. That was not the case for Sam Bankman-Fried, obviously, who got 25 years. That was not the case for Caroline Ellison, who got 2 years, but it was the case for Nishad Singh, who was actually quite relaxed up there as he spoke to the court and had the support of his family. About 100 people, I would want to say, in terms of everyone being in there, but half of them were Nishad's family, which was rare compared to the other sentencing. And he also lost like 50 pounds. So stress will do things to you, but nothing to be stressed about anymore for both his family and for him, as he gets time served after facing 70 years as the maximum sentence in this case. Of course, we already saw Judge Kaplan not want to really reward the fact that anyone in this case, granted Sam maybe didn't cooperate, but Caroline Ellison claimed to have cooperated. For Nishad Singh, though, he did actually hear that out, calling Nishad, in his case, quite different than what happened with Caroline. It only took about an hour, and Nishad only spoke for about 3 minutes, but nonetheless, it all worked out. So I just want to walk through what just happened in the courtroom. As per usual, the defense attorney got up there and kicked things off for Nishad. That was Andrew Goldstein, an attorney who used to work as a former prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, so he actually knows Judge Kaplan quite well, I would assume, which may have actually helped in this as he walked through all the points in terms of differentiating what just happened, which was a surprise. If you haven't watched kind of the recap from Caroline Ellison's sentencing, not a lot of people expected her to get jail time, including the former prosecutor who took down Bernie Madoff, but she got 2 years. So in his presentation, Andrew Goldstein actually did quite a good job, as I think we can say now, in trying to differentiate Nishad's role in the FTX collapse from that of Caroline Ellison, who got 2 years and didn't quite cooperate in the same way, as we even heard from the prosecutors who spoke after Andrew Goldstein. But we'll just start with what he was presenting, saying that essentially Nishad, as you could tell through the letters that were submitted by more than 100 people, including 18 former FTX or Alameda employees as well as SBF's brother Gabe, as well as John Ray, the now CEO of FTX after it filed bankruptcy. So there's a lot of support for people saying that Nishad is actually a good guy, only 29 years old, got caught up in all of this late in the game, wasn't really there for the earlier decisions that we heard about in the FTX case that were made by Sam, Gary, who's yet to be sentenced, the co-founder, Sam's co-founder, and Caroline as well. And as we heard from Andrew Goldstein, basically the defense was trying to present that it was Nishad who didn't hesitate to come forward with the evidence that was instrumental in convicting Sam and Caroline and bringing about justice for FTX victims in this case. Specifically, Andrew Goldstein made reference to the point that Judge Kaplan made in Caroline's sentencing, which I thought was pretty interesting because it was as if he was debating Judge Kaplan before Judge Kaplan could even get to the points that he probably would make given he gave Caroline 2 years, which was that letting Nishad walk would not be a get-out-of-jail-free card. That was the reference he used when he explained why he had to give Caroline 2 years and not give her time served like she and the government, by the way, actually wanted. Goldstein said that it would show that the government cares about cooperating witnesses like Nishad if he were to be able to walk, and that Nishad went beyond what he needed to do to give back to the victims, including forfeiting his stake in Anthropic, which is the AI company that is now blowing up quite a bit, as well as his crypto holdings, which were in FTX at the time as well. Basically saying that Nishad, regardless, is going to have to start over, so that he's already facing punishment because of all those things that were written about him, and that he never actually had any of the money that some publications had said that he had, including walking away with $500 million from FTX. His lawyer basically said that's not true at all. He's got nothing. Goldstein also made it clear that Nishad, from the very beginning, when all of this was unfolding, did cooperate with the government, saying that he met with them more than 20 times, also helped the SEC, the CFTC, the bankruptcy estate, and state regulators anytime that they had questions about crypto or kind of what could go wrong, as was the case with FTX. And then also said that he got caught up in the larger criminal enterprise that SBF himself was directing. From the trial, we did hear from Nishad about how much he respected Sam and how well he knew him and his brother Gabe, and how that may have played into him going along with certain things that maybe he wouldn't have done if he was on his own. And then his attorney closed with the story about his father. Again, his family was in the front row watching this all play out, saying that his father always traveled with Nishad for all of these meetings with the government as well as with his legal team, trying to show that he still got, a bunch of family support and that he comes from a good family, and that his dad was there basically every meeting and got to know the barista on a first name basis, which was, I think, a story that actually did move Judge Kaplan enough, because Judge Kaplan smiled when he heard the story of his family being there. There was, of course, a lot of that kind of shared in the letters leading up to this as well, as we heard about from Judge Kaplan a little bit later on. But it was pretty quick, only about 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so from Nishad's attorney before Nishad himself stepped to the microphone. Nishad only had one page to go through. He said that he was overwhelmed with remorse, was his opening statement, and that he did look up to Sam Bankman-Fried, though he did note that he could be at times self-serving. Nishad, beyond that, apologized to everyone that the FTX collapse impacted, not just employees and customers, but also the people in the Bahamas. And that was a piece that we heard from earlier on in the trial and at sentencing, was that Nishad was nice towards all of those people that he really didn't have a reason to be nice to, supposedly, to show that his character is still there and that he's not kind of in the same camp as the other perpetrators in this scheme. But he did say that he, quote, strayed so far from his views and words could not express his regret and his involvement in all of this, and that specifically that he came to see the value of specific actions over abstract ideals. Part of his defense was that he was kind of roped into this scheme and played into the idea of effective altruism, and that he really did think that he was doing good with the actions in growing FTX. He kind of wrapped up on describing a little bit more of all that and apologizing to the judge, but saying that he takes ownership over whatever sentence is to come. And that is where we heard from the other side, the prosecutors. In this case, Nick Ruse, who was one of the assistant prosecutors, not the main one, but one of the assistants to really defend all of the help they got from Nishad. Ruse didn't spend too much time walking through all of that help in detail because they already submitted it to the judge before all of this, but basically did say that Nishad was the only person who did not wait to see what the evidence was or what kind of plea agreements might be. He just walked into the office and said, this was from the prosecutor, they said that he incriminated himself before the government even had any leads on anything that he admitted to, and that he went beyond what was necessary to kind of build a case, specifically when it comes to the campaign finance charges that were brought against the other FTX execs in this case and against Sam Bankman-Fried. They basically said it would have taken a year, if not more, were it not for what Nishad provided. So certainly helpful in that sense. We also heard the prosecutor say that it could have been very easy for Nishad to deny everything from the beginning, but rather, again, step forward, and that he deserves credit for coming forward as a cooperator, and then kind of refuted what we heard in the Caroline Ellison sentencing. Again, if you haven't watched that, go back and watch that video, because Judge Kaplan's point was that the fraud was so big, the collapse was so big, that he couldn't reward some of that cooperation. And in the case of Caroline Ellison, it wasn't the fact that she just came forward and cooperated from the jump. It was more so true for Nishad's case, where he did just come forward and say, look, I don't care how this is going to go. I'll tell you everything and give you what you want to make this case and to supposedly bring about justice for everybody. So that was pretty much where the prosecution left off, which was, look, we know that you did this once before and didn't really agree with us on letting Caroline Ellison walk, but we'll just say that, look, it does help us and attract cooperation if you do kind of reward some of the credit that people deserve, Judge Kaplan, in some of these witnesses that did help us form the case. And for Nishad, that was certainly the case if you listen to the prosecutors. The prosecutor said that he believed that Nishad had, quote, extreme remorse in their meetings whenever they were preparing for trial or going through all the documents, and that he felt it was genuine in the way that he was acting and presenting his remorse, not just to the court, but also to the prosecutors behind the scenes. At that point, Judge Kaplan started walking through his full sentencing, and appreciated, I think, from the very jump that this was quite different than what happened with Caroline Ellison. And that was what he opened with, basically, again, stating the fact that this was one of the biggest frauds in American history. But that, and I think this set the tone, that Judge Kaplan was entirely persuaded that Nishad Singh was less involved than either SBF or Caroline Ellison, and that SBF was a little bit older. He had that personal relationship with Nishad Singh and his brother, and recognized that it might have been hard for Nishad to come out from under that. But that when he was given the choice in the road, the fork in the road, so to speak, that he could A, do the right thing, or B, try and maximize what might be in his own self-interest, he didn't go through the spectrum of options. He just leaned into doing what was the right thing at that time, which was to cooperate with the government. So pretty clear from the jump that Judge Kaplan was not going to go down the road that he did with Caroline Ellison, which was deterrence is more important. You got to get some jail time than no jail time. And unlike what we saw with Caroline Ellison, there wasn't that whole kind of buildup. It was just basically Judge Kaplan walking through why he was more in the realm and more persuaded to say time served, no prison time, than giving him anything at all. Specifically, Judge Kaplan used the words that it was a serious moral element to what Nishad did, and that he was a very important cooperator, contributing to the appropriate end result to everyone who was participating in this scheme. And so in that sense, Judge Kaplan did come out and say, look, you were integral to the government's trying of this case, and that should be taken into account, perhaps more so than the size of the fraud itself. Granted as well that Nishad Singh really did come in towards the end. He wasn't there as early as either Gary, Caroline, or Sam. And so in that's basically when Judge Kaplan arrived at the point, asked Nishad to stand, and delivered the sentence. As his family watched, his fiancée, who was also there, put her arm around Nishad's mom. Very tense from the family, which is kind of, again, half the courtroom. And I'll say this, never seen a sigh like visibly come out from people, but you could almost see it out of the corner of your eye, just the way that half of the courtroom reacted, and the sigh of relief that came from his parents. And I mention that because this is also very strange, not normal for a judge, I don't think, to really add personal notes after the sentencing was read and all the details were gone through. But before Judge Kaplan actually left the courtroom, he stood up and addressed the family directly, which by this point were kind of crying. The dad and Nishad's mom were both crying. A lot of tissues being passed around at that point because he's not going to jail. And Judge Kaplan specifically said, I didn't see anything you did wrong. So basically Judge Kaplan saying that they played it perfectly in terms of trying to support their son, 29-year-old, who was going through all of this. And again, with him along the way, step by step, to make sure that he got out with no prison time. Which I think, weirdly, if you think about it, could be a jab, could be a dig at Sam's parents, who were also in the courtroom for his entire trial and his sentencing, which, a lot of people have talked about Sam's relationship with his parents and kind of how involved they were in his legal defense. We saw that. You can watch our kind of setup to Sam's trial as well, where I was there at his parents' home, very clearly involved in that defense. Whereas I think here, Judge Kaplan, with a nod right before everyone left the courtroom, basically saying, look, you guys didn't do anything wrong here. Pretty unique in the way that Judge Kaplan was speaking directly to this, defendant's family, which again took up half the courtroom. But regardless, pretty interesting in that finally we have seen one cooperator at least given no jail time, and that the prosecutors who also were there, I was right behind them as they left the courtroom, smiling. They seemed happy with kind of Judge Kaplan this time agreeing that their cooperator should be rewarded for what they helped them with. And Judge Kaplan clearly on the same page there, too. In the end, Nishad Singh walks. No jail time for him, the former director of engineering, though he did play a part in this, and certainly will still walk away, having pled guilty to all of this, a felon in terms of his role in the collapse, but no jail time, which is distinct from Caroline and Sam. And we still have Gary Wong's sentencing to come, which I believe is next month. Going to be covering that one as well from the same courtroom in front of the same judge. Probably going to be a different result than what we got today, but keep it locked. If you like the video, I will appreciate that. And of course, if you aren't subscribed to the Coinage YouTube channel, go ahead and do that now. And also, If you want to co-own Coinage with us, head to coinage.media for all the latest headlines in crypto. Thank you for watching. Check out all our other content too on the channel. We'll see you again soon.